afternoon and welcome to the 25th hour at the Carleton University School of Journalism. I'm Barbara Doro.
And I'm Alexander Baina. Do you work to live or live to work? Today we're talking about jobs, passions, and the sweet spot where those two things overlap.
We'll hear from Ottawans who turn hobbies into careers. These are stories that will make you say, hey, maybe I should quit my day job.
But first, a story about a man who followed in his father's footsteps and carried on the family legacy of serving the community.
The Ottawa citizen is home to one of the only remaining in-house printing presses in Canada. As the media landscape shifts, the nightly motion of the printing press has remained a constant. Matthew Timpson is a foreman in the press room.
So my name is Matthew Timpson and I'm a nightside foreman here at the Ottawa Citizen. I started working here in 1985, 86 when I was a young teenager, and just progressed up through. Worked in the mailroom part-time for 11 years, and then I started working on the presses.
Hey Frank, go ahead and tighten everything up, please.
So my father, Stan, he worked here for 45 years. So what he did was he would, back then they didn't have computers and stuff like that, so they would do up the pages and then he would cut and paste where the pictures and the articles would go on the pages. And then he's 74, so he retired 12 years ago when he was 62. And by the end of his career, he was working on computers, designing ads and stuff like that. But yeah, he was here for 45 years and also worked evenings, sort of like I do. We print the Ottawa Citizen here 6 days a week, the Ottawa Sun 7 days a week, print the National Post 5 days a week. We print the Cornwall Standard and the Brockville Recorder Times 5 days a week. And then we print, I think it's 7 weekly newspapers. We print a real estate paper for Brockville. For the Sun, we print roughly 20 to 23,000 a night. For the Citizen, tonight probably around 60,000. Yeah, serving the community, you know, that's something that I enjoy doing. And I think a newspaper is part of that. You know, because we never stop. You know, Citizen used to go 7 days a week, and even during the ice storm, I think it was '98, when the terror attack happened in 2001, we make sure that people can get the information and know what's happening. You know, when I started in the mailroom, probably I think it was '85 or '86. I was 15 years old. There was probably maybe 1,000, I'm guessing, but around 1,000 people working in this building. Like the parking lot would be packed.
Okay, take your bolts off with the changes.
B8 for the Post.
B8 for the post.
Yeah, that Indochino ad or whatever it is. Just because of computers and the way that they can do things, you know.
Alrighty.
Thanks, pal.
Bye.
Bye. And get things done quicker. So you can definitely print, like the papers, I'm going to say 20 years ago were probably well over 100 pages. Now this Saturday's paper is going to be 74 pages. So big difference. And the big part of that is due to the fact of the classifieds. It's hard, and I think a lot of people that work here are a little bit worried about what's going to happen because, I mean, there's a lot more people working here 10, 15 years ago, and the numbers definitely are declining. Like I said, I enjoy my job. It can be a little stressful sometimes, but I definitely enjoy it. Definitely the industry is a changing industry. Same as TV with Netflix and Crave and all that type of stuff with cable subscriptions. But I think we're going to be okay here for a little while. And said if they keep paying me, I keep coming in, and a lot of the people are happy to work here. And I'm one of them. So. But like I said, I'll stay here until they kick me out.
Now we've got a story for you about a different kind of ink. Students are always looking for ways to turn their passions into professions. Katie Nelson is a computer science student by day. By night, she's a special kind of tattoo artist.
Yeah. Let me know whenever you need a break or if you want to move your arm or whatever.
Okay. How are you feeling?
Fine.
Right? Not to sound weird or anything, but I kind of like it.
My name is Katie Nelson and I am a hand poke tattoo artist. I have a fascination with bones, specifically bones, animals. Magical imagery as well is really interesting to me. I like smoke, I like plants. Things that are a little bit unusual to see in tattoos.
And then you wanted like that for sizing?
Yeah. My roommate came home one day and was like, here's some tattoo needles, like come stick it in my body. But yeah, we had some ink at home and we had some needles and we were like, cool, let's do this. And then I realized that I really liked it and also that it was dangerous to do it that way. So I just started researching more and eventually it became like what I wanted to do. Usually the process is they'll reach out, have an idea, maybe an idea of placement, an idea of size, and either I'll draw it out for them and we can agree on that design, or they'll choose from something that I've already done or that I've already drawn out. So after the sketch is finished, I'm going to clean it up a little bit with tracing paper and then scan it in, and then print it off in letter paper and then make a stencil out of it. So there are like 6 or 7 different spots where we can make changes. Depending on where I am, I'll be setting up in my home, and with all of the equipment that I've acquired over the years. But I have tattooed in other people's places when I was like just starting out. I still don't prefer doing it quite like that, just because I like having all of the access to everything that I need. There are many people out there doing it in a really unsafe way, but there are steps you can take to make it really safe and do it responsibly, basically. Let's get started. Tattooing is really methodical and kind of monotonous and it's pretty meditative, honestly. I'm a highly detailed perfectionist, basically. So I love being able to slowly flesh out the line work of a piece. I think that's satisfying and, I don't know, kind of meditative. It's nice. But when you tattoo, the ink kind of bubbles up on top of the skin a little bit, so you kind of can't see where you're going. So it'll bubble on top and it'll obscure where you're going to tattoo next. So you have to go by feel, and there's a technique where you're not poking straight down, you're poking 45 angle and into the upper layers of the skin, not down into the skin. I don't know that I've fully nailed down exactly what my style is to tattoo, so much as I've nailed down the technique, and now I have to kind of explore where I'm going with my art.
Our next story is about a woman whose passion has taken her to great heights. For some, dancing is a hobby. For Olivia Carey, dancing is an identity. Olivia began dancing at a young age, and she doesn't plan on stopping anytime soon. As an aerial hoop dancer navigating her 20s, Carey is just getting started.
All you have to focus on is the hoop itself so that you don't get dizzy, and the world around you just kind of falls away, and it's just, it's the greatest stress relief for me. My name's Olivia Carey, and I'm an aerialist, and specifically an aerial hoopist. So the aerial hoop is just a large steel hoop that hangs from the ceiling, and you do a variety of tricks and poses on it. So I started in dance pretty early on. I started at about 5 or 6 years old and did dance for a long time. But when I was in dance class, I was always comparing myself to other dancers and always kind of holding myself back because I didn't feel like I was as good as the other dancers. But when I found aerial hoop, I felt like it was a much more independent practice. It was kind of my opportunity to really find something that I felt like I could I could be good at and that I really loved. There's just a lot of different things that come into play that I love about it, and it's just so different. It's unlike anything else I've ever done before. So I performed last Christmas at my church. My church community is really special to me. I've been going there for 8 years, and it's like a family there. One thing that I really wanted to see happen was to have more dance and more kind of movement. It's like a prayer for me. It's like how I connect spiritually to God. The performance was just like an opportunity to bring those two passions together, my passion for circus arts and my love and my passion for my church. So aerial hoop is really addicting for me. It's like you try a new pose and it's super painful and you hate it, and the next day you're super sore, but then like the next day you want to hop right back on and try it again. It always encourages me to try new things, because once I get one pose or one trick, then I'm on to the next one. So one of my favorite poses is the dragonfly, and that's just where I'm hanging my knees from the top of the hoop, and my chest is laying at the bottom of the hoop. So I'm upside down, and then I take one of my legs off and stick it through the hoop. It's my favorite because it just feels very freeing and like I'm flying. So all of those dance lessons, all of that gymnastics that I took, even the piano lessons helped me with the musicality of the choreography. Even though I felt like I was never really that good at any of those things, when I finally found something that I really loved and was passionate about, it's like everything that I had done leading up to that contributed to it and to the skill that I now have. So for anybody that's kind of wondering or thinking that they're not very good at something or they don't have that thing that they love, I would say keep on looking, keep on searching, because everything that you're doing is contributing to that thing that you're going to find and that you're going to love one day.
Our next story is about a man who makes words dance. Jamal Jackson Rogers first read a book of poems when he was 9 years old. It inspired him to start writing his own poetry. Now, he's Ottawa's Poet Laureate and co-owns an arts venue where he helps others find their voice.
I have many things to give you. The first of which
My
is
name is
not
Jamal
my
Jackson
heart,
Rogers. I'm an artist, a father, a husband, and a creative entrepreneur.
but the first of which is my word.
Poetry came to me when I was 9 years old. I was asked to go to the library and find a book of poems by my ESL teacher at the time, because we were going to do a poetry unit. And I went to the library and I pulled out this book of poems by Langston Hughes, and it changed my life.
I am reminded of that same eye that has led me to disappointment and shame time
So I
and
wrote my
time
own poem
again.
after that. It was like based off of the Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue poem. And you know, there's a certain meter, and that was like, that's the most famous poem kids know, right? The roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, and so are you. So I decided to write my own 4-line metered type poem, and it was to a young girl. The parts of me that cornered me. Yeah. The teacher loved it and asked me to perform it in front of the class or present it, and I was nervous, but I did it, and that was the first time I realized like words have power, and that's how it changed my life.
The Origin Arts and Community Center came about from a collaborative vision and passion to create a space for voices that are often valued between myself and Jackie Dutoy, who's a creative and an artist in Ottawa. And then I told her my experience in India and how I'm having these visions of opening a space. Jackie was like, me too. Like, this has been something brewing in her as well. For as a man, my word is not my bond, it is my hopes. In hopes that tomorrow before dawn, I wake up feeling exactly like this.
It's important to, when you're starting to build infrastructure to become free, you have to support the communities that are disenfranchised. that don't get enough support. And I'm starting to practice that more and more. How do I use my finances in the right communities and support people who need that? So trying to buy from local artists and people of color, trying to invest in ideas and, you know, creativity from communities that are, you know, majority people of color. That way I'm not just saying it, I'm doing it.
As I stand in this pursuit of peace, this
I hope that my
nostalgic
art
aura
takes
that
me
surrounds me
to a place of recognition where people who understand a certain type of struggle growing up as a person of color will be able to say, if he did it, I could do it too.
So what shall become of this man? Do I ride and stride the wave and let the way of love navigate me? Or do I let go of the reins when the waters become troubled?
You're watching The 25th Hour. Coming up next, two men explain why they would leave their jobs behind to pursue a career in gymnastics and craft beer making. Local owner of Dominion City Brewery, Josh McJanet, will give us a look at Ottawa's place in the national beer scene. And finally, we find out why one 18-year-old teenager put off school for the love of the climb.
Thanks for joining us on the 25th hour. So far, we have heard stories of people pursuing their childhood dreams. But not all passion projects have their roots in childhood, especially when they involve beer. What started as Ottawa's tiniest brewery is now on its way to the big leagues. Chris Samuel is taking his passion for beer from his Bell's Corners garage to the next step.
There's only about three things that I think about on a regular basis: beer, hockey, and my family. And that's about it. Like, there's not really much else that goes on up here beyond that. My name is Chris Samuel. I'm 45 years old. During the day, I work as a software developer for a small company down the market. And I love making beer. The very first time I brewed was actually, I bought a Costco kit, and it was the worst beer I'd ever tasted. I started thinking it'd be kind of a fun idea to do something commercially, and so we went through a number of different ideas and found a way to get the garage licensed, and it went from there. Everyone kind of thinks that Evergreen is about trees, and it's not. So, you know, Evergreen is started on Evergreen Drive, which is where my house is. Even our logo is focused around the old City of Nepean street sign. That's kind of where it all started, and that's how we got started in the garage. So first step that we do is we've sanitized the cans already. We purge the oxygen out using CO2. We fill it from the bottom up. So what this does is it pushes any other oxygen out of the can and creates a little bit of foam in the top, which protects a protective layer of CO2 on the top of the can. We get our lid. And we close it up. The garage is kind of, you know, it looks like a garage, right? It's kind of a little dingy and stuff like that, and people have come to expect that to be something coming out of a garage. I have a friend of mine who I play hockey with who kind of came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to do something bigger?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, he's like, "All right, well, let's do it." We're trying to bring a little bit of coolness into Canada as well. Give something for people to look forward to that's not going to Costco, although I love going to Costco, I'm not gonna lie. We're like gonna be this little oasis of authenticity inside this little sea of big box stores around us. When people walk in here, they're gonna be expecting, you know, the full experience, and we're gonna provide it, but we're working on getting all that in place. You can put that one down. So much time just experimenting and having fun with it. That time comes to an end now. Now it's time to really get down and focus on the quality and focus on the science and not just the fun creative side of things. It looks nice like that, though, having that in there. Some people will say, well, do you imagine expanding and taking over the world and having big, massive production facilities and having your beer distributed around the world? And that's not what we're in this for. This isn't about money, it's about lifestyle, it's about enjoying what you do every day, coming into work and like not, you know, just not dreading it. We want to really have that connection with people, and so they see where they're getting their products from. It's friendly, it's fun. There's very few places other than craft brewers that do this. For me, I love everything about beer, like not just drinking it. Like I love the smell of walking into a brewery while they're brewing. Like there's the smell of the wort boiling and stuff like that. Like really gets me excited. I believe there's a beer for every single moment of life, and it's just a matter of finding the right one for each one.
Chris Samuel isn't the only beer fan in town. Luckily, there's room for quite a few of them. 25th Hour reporter Dana Hatherley is here to tell us what she learned about the local craft brewing industry.
Thanks, Alex. There's a real thirst for craft beer here. The range of colorful and creative labels stocked on store shelves was one of the first things I noticed. Dozens of small brewers have poured in across the region in recent history. Ottawa historian Andrew King suggests the capital's first brewery could date back as far as 200 years ago. But the alcoholic beverage itself has been fermenting for centuries. I met local brewer and beer expert Josh McJanet at Dominion City Brewing Company. He says humanity is here because of beer. It's not necessarily a defining factor, but it's a huge part of our society. He explained today's burgeoning beer market ties back to its roots.
Humanity is here because of beer. Fermentation is a solution to dirty drinking water and bacteria and all kinds of things that can kill us. So I actually think beer's got us through some tough scrapes. And I think beer is deeply tied to human civilization and to culture.
So the craft beer scene here in Ottawa, is this just a trend or is it here to stay?
Having beer made hyper-locally by real people who make a diversity of styles from all kinds of different ingredients is actually much more normal historically than what we were doing when I had my first beer.
In your opinion, is Ottawa the beer capital of Canada?
I love the beer that we make here in this town. I think there are amazing examples of some of the best brewers in the whole country. I think we're in this really neat confluence of influences where, like, you know, obviously Toronto is a huge English-speaking market, not that far from here. Montreal, which has a very different brewing history, in some ways an older craft brewing history. It's very Belgian influenced, they're nearby. And then we have Vermont and all of New England, and they have been, I would say, one of the most influential producers of beer as a region anywhere in North America in the last 5 years. And I think Ottawa has actually been ahead of the curve in a lot of ways of adopting styles and brewing techniques from brewers in New England. So I absolutely think there's a case to make that Ottawa's the national capital of craft beer. But you know, I think more than anything is we have the right mix of like people who want to be thoughtful about what they're drinking. And it doesn't need to be snooty or pretentious or any of those things. It's just, you know, people who are interested and value an experience and having their beer be about a little bit more, I think.
Ottawa just might fit the bill for craft brew capital of Canada, and it's not slowing its flow anytime soon.
That was Dana Hatherley talking to us live from the studio. When you find yourself at a crossroads, sometimes the only way to go is up. Rock climbing will make its rise onto the world stage for the first time at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Last fall, one local athlete came just short of qualifying for the Games, but that's not keeping her down.
My name is Kat Karkner and I'm an Ottawa-based rock climber. I train predominantly here at Altitude Gym Canada. When I was about 9 years old, my father brought me to the climbing gym for the first time. What really brought me back was the sense of community that the sport gave me. I've tried a lot of sports before. This was very unique and different, as well as creative because it involves a lot of problem solving. Essentially, the goal of climbing is to get to the top of any set route or problem, and so by doing that you need to figure out how to place your body or climb the route, whether that be like, oh, I need to place my foot 2 inches to the left, or I need to go right hand, left hand bump. There's definitely some high and low days. For example, there's this yellow jump that I've been having trouble with lately. It's kind of frustrating to fail on it. Honestly, I don't really think of the falling anymore. I mean, it sucks to suddenly be back on the ground, but I know if I got there once, I can get there again. Rock climbing teaches you perseverance, I'd say, just because whenever you fail, you are literally having to pick yourself up off the ground and get back on the wall. I'd spend around 3 to 4 hours at the gym, but keeping in mind 30 minutes of that is warming up, and then 30 minutes might be stretching, and then some lightweight, like antagonist work at the end, and definitely a lot of rest between. It's a really big mental game. You need to be on the ball, you need to be focused, you need to know when to exert yourself and time your attempts. So I'd even say that physical preparation is for competitions, but really competition is a mental game. Like, you can't make yourself stronger in the same moment, but you can change how you're competing. In around April or May of last year, I found out that I had qualified for the Youth Olympic Games in Argentina last October.
Nice, Kat.
I struggled with my emotions a lot, and I actually at some points wasn't sure whether I would accept the invitation and go, because I did want to go to school. I had already accepted an offer. Finally, in August, I decided I couldn't actually go to school and compete in Argentina at the same time. I really was able to buckle down on my training because it was the only thing in my life. It was like the center.
Okay, I don't want to jump down.
You can. You're fine.
Come
on, Kat! Let's go, Kat! Let's go, Kat! Yeah, Kat, come on!
I think that I'll climb as long as it's physically possible. The longevity of someone's competition climbing career isn't very long, but I think that you can climb recreationally or outside into later life for sure.
Is your 9 to 5 taking the bounce out of your step? It did for Nick Grimard, which is why, when offered the chance, he jumped out of his office chair and back onto the trampoline as the co-owner of Laws of Motion Gymnastics Club.
Before you start a pass in free running or parkour, you usually have a pretty good idea exactly what it is you want to do. I want to know kind of where I'm taking off and where I'm trying to land. You're not really thinking that much when you're doing this stuff. You've done the moves 1,000 times over, so a lot of it is just muscle memory. I'm Nick Grimard, and I'm the co-owner of Laws of Motion. I didn't always get to have this much fun. Before opening a gymnastics club, I was a mechanical engineer. So I went to university, got my engineering degree, and sort of did the whole corporate rat race for 5 years. But I just had such an active lifestyle growing up, to then have to transition to sitting behind a computer and just staring at a monitor for 9 hours a day. It got old real fast. I had a routine where, like, the first 2 hours of my day, I would just waste time. You know what I mean? Like, I would go get my coffee, then I would check emails, then I would check this, and my day turned into less about how productive can I be and more about how can I look like I'm working when I'm not really doing anything. I'm just killing time to make it to the end of the day, and to me, that's a brutal life. What really caused me to quit and coach full-time was when my business partner, Ryan, told me that he was opening a club and he wanted me to come in as an equal partner. And it was just a point in my life where I wasn't married, I didn't have any kids, I was 28 at the time, and I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to open my own gym club. If I'm gonna take a risk in life, now is the time to do it. You can see if you go back to when we first opened to where we are now, each year it would just get busier and busier. Gymnastics is a tough sport. If you define success as competing at the kind of high national level, it really is an early childhood development sport, so you have to start young. I started training at the recreational level at about 6 years old. I was like provincial, national level athlete, and we were training something like 20 hours a week, and it just was too much. So like switching from grade 8 to grade 9, was when I decided to, start having a life and hanging out with my friends after school, date girls, I retired as an athlete and transitioned to coaching, and I've loved coaching ever since. I think gymnastics has gotten to a point where it's so elitist that a lot of these young kids who could be great gymnasts are getting pushed way too hard, way too young, and then they just burn out.
I want to see it landed though. I did. Well, you got to do it again. It don't count if I don't see it.
Some of these competitive programs, they're trying to get, 6 and 7-year-olds in the gym 25 hours a week, standing full. And, to be successful at the high level, those programs do work, but for every 100 kids that sign up for those programs, 99 of them burn out.
Push. Push. There you go.
Our most competitive program is 4 hours a week. We just try to keep it a little more fun, I think there's something to be said about a kid coming into a gym with a goal, and you as a coach being able to talk to that kid and say, okay, what are your goals? These are your goals, well, how are we gonna get there? There's nothing more rewarding than watching a kid work towards learning a skill for, 6 months and then get that skill for the first time. It really is kind of the best feeling that you can get as a coach.
2, back, tuck. Oh, it's getting smooth.
I wouldn't appreciate how much I love my job right now had I not worked a job I hated beforehand. So it's always nice to kind of have that background of doing something you don't like, so that when you do find your passion, your calling in life, it's much more obvious. Making the transition to kind of owning a club and being a full-time gymnastics coach was the smartest decision I ever made in my life. It was a lot of work, but it was an amazing adventure. And now I wake up in the morning and I really look forward to coming into work. I get paid to bounce on trampolines. It's the best job in the world.
Thank you for being with us today. This has been the 25th Hour. I'm Barbara Doro.
And I'm Alexander Baina. Join us next time for a show about an eclectic group of locals who've decided to live life by their own rules. Thank you for watching. See you soon on the 25th Hour.